Today we're going to learn about plagiarism. Ideally, your teachers would have taught you about plagiarism at least in middle school, if not earlier, but we're definitely going to cover it today. In a nutshell, don't do it. There are consequences for plagiarizing. So today we're going to be able to define plagiarism, summarize the consequences for plagiarizing at Coconino High School and FUSD. You're going to be able to identify plagiarism as well and ideally fix examples of it. So what is plagiarism? For Flagstaff Unified School District, it is defined as as the representation intentionally or unwittingly, meaning you can plagiarize even if you don't mean to do it. So this is where it's really, really important to talk to your teachers and ask questions like, did I plagiarize? Because even if you didn't mean to, you can still get in trouble for it. So please, please, please be careful. I recommend sharing your essays with your teachers ahead of time and asking them, hey, did I accidentally plagiarize? Because then we at least know that you're trying to avoid it. And we also know how we need to teach it better. And so it's when you intentionally or unintentionally take the ideas, words, or work of another person without proper, clear, and explicit acknowledgement. The use of translated materials, unless indicated and acknowledged, is also considered plagiarism. So you need to include the translator. Okay? So consequences. I'm a little stricter than this. Basically, we will reteach it to you and what it should look like in our individual classes, and we will contact your parents or guardians and write you up for it. You need to redo the assignment similarly or in a different manner. So usually I just give you a 0 and I don't let you redo it. But yes, your parents or guardians will also be contacted and you will be written up. If you do it a second time or even beyond that, then there's a discipline matrix that we will follow and the consequences will get harsher each time. It's really important that you know what plagiarism is and that you nip it in the bud as soon as possible, because if you plan to go to college or university, if you plagiarize, there's a fine and a class that you need to take. And trust me, you don't want to be doing that in college. You usually don't have the money either. And after that, you could even be expelled and you don't even get a refund for your tuition for that semester or year, depending on how far in advance you've paid. If you plagiarize in a job, you could be sued. You could go to prison for it, depending on how severe the plagiarism is. So there are really severe consequences for it, and that's why I feel like I need to be stricter than just the first offense. So usually I don't let students redo it. I just give them a 0. Okay. Now, if it's unwitting and you don't realize that you're plagiarizing, like you messed up MLA, I'm not going to give you a 0. But if it's obvious that you just took someone else's essay or took a huge section from something else and you're not giving it credit, that's a 0. Because I can tell when you copy and paste things. So what exactly is plagiarism? Turning in someone else's work as your own, so taking a classmate's essay or buying an essay or just copying and pasting information from websites that you find. Again, copying large pieces of text without citing that source. It's not hard to cite it. And I go over MLA, and you can go to our Canvas page and you can review those videos at any time. Taking passages from multiple sources and piecing them together and turning it in as your own. Or if you copy a source but change a few words to disguise the plagiarism, that still counts. It still pops up on turnitin.com, which is another website that helps check for plagiarism. Paraphrasing from different sources without citing those sources. Turning in work that you did for another class without getting your professor's permission first, so you can plagiarize yourself. And again, buying an essay or paper and turning it in as your own. So these are all examples of plagiarism. So here's an example. Students are often instructed not only to use their intuition to determine if a text is biased, but also to check the credentials of the author and the respectability of the publication in which the article occurs. So this is plagiarized right here. And you can see, let's see, what is the difference? Well, there's no difference. I don't see any. Oh, instead of and the respectability as well as, that's the difference. So it's completely plagiarized because they're quoting, but there aren't quotation marks around it. If it's not your own idea, it's really easy to include it and just put quotation marks around it and give credit where it's due, which is right here. Okay, so that's how you fix it. So many times students are instructed to utilize not only their intuition to decide whether a text is biased, but to check the credentials of writers as well as the reputation of the larger source in which the article appears. Basically, well, they're not underlined, but some parts are from a different article without credit. So they need to be fixed. Now, this is a paraphrase of that first quote again, but it's acceptable because the phrasing is different, change the way in which the ideas were presented, and they still give credit where credit's due with that in-text citation. In-text citations are the author's last name and page number. Notice the period or punctuation goes at the end, and there is no comma. That is how you do it. Okay? Another way is if you don't want the author's last name in the in-text citation, you can have it here and just the page number afterwards. And again, you're giving credit where credit is due. So these are examples of plagiarism. On turnitin.com, we actually can see huge highlighted portions and the websites from which you get the information. This is why it's so important for you guys to analyze texts on your own and put your own ideas in there. It's way better, and it's always a higher grade if you do your own work rather than getting a 0 for plagiarizing. If you have any questions, please ask so that we can help you best understand what plagiarism is. And whether or not your other teachers go over it, you've learned it in my class, and so I expect you not to plagiarize in other classes either.